Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Meanwhile, here on Earth.
And as the man says, hello and welcome back or to Meanwhile Here on Earth. We are broadcasting on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, located in the beautiful state of Utah, although that is not where I am, nor our guest. Just a reminder, if you enjoy these programs and other shows on KGRA, please consider subscribing. All you need to do is go to their website. That is kgradb.com, DB for digital broadcasting. At the top, you will quickly find the area to register to become a member. And whether it's by the month or by the year, if you use my first name, Peter, I memorized that when I was quite young, as your subscription code, you'll get a full 30% off. Before we bring on our esteemed and return guest, I wanted to take a few brief minutes to talk about what I think is a rather exciting development in the world of serious UFO studies. One of a number of our most dedicated archivists on this subject is David Marler, whose collection of UFO files, books, minutiae, memorabilia, ephemera is legendary. David announced this past week that he and several equally esteemed colleagues are starting on a new venture, which is going to be called the National UFO Historical Records Center. And reading from the nomenclature they put out, it is going to be a group of UFO historians and archivists led by Marler, including, for those of us that are total geeks on this stuff, legendary names, Jan Aldrich, Rob Dyke, Barry Greenwood, Dr. Mark Roediger, Rob Zwitek, and others. It is going to be based in the beautiful state of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and will be a central repository for all records UFO related and the material that it's generated. There are a number of really fine repositories of this information. One of the best known is at the Roswell UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell, New Mexico. This is not competition. It's all good. And I understand the folks at the Museum and Research Center have congratulated and sent their best wishes to David and company. As somebody who really passionately believes that if we do not understand or appreciate history, we will repeat our mistakes repeatedly. And this subject, which, years ago one could say it was a bunch of fringy people or believers, has come into its own. Very few people would even consider suggesting at this point that there is nothing to it, and that a percentage, whatever it is, of the phenomena identified as UFO or UAP is indeed advanced technology from parts unknown, coming and going from our planet with impunity, under the guidance of intelligent beings, or an intelligence for sure. I will be giving updates on this subject because it is dear to my heart. And this will be a facility that will be, on the public record. It will be a place that serious researchers can visit and spend time at. At this point, though, it is coming together under the direction of Marlar, who is a remarkable asset to this field, a great researcher and investigator, but a superb and supreme archivist. And we wish them all the best in this important venture. Now, that said, I am very pleased to welcome back tonight's guest. Stephen G. Bassett is the first extraterrestrial life disclosure lobbyist in the United States. I think he still may be the only one. He's also the executive director of Paradigm Research Group, better known as PRG, founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomena. Excuse me. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, which we'll define here as the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He has given in excess of 1,200 radio and television interviews, I'm guessing considerably more since this was written, and PRG's advocacy work has been extensively covered by national and international media, including being featured on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times. Bassett has appeared in many documentary films, and his lectures and interviews are well represented on YouTube. In 2013, PRG organized an historic event, Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, at the National Press Club, which ran for about 5 days, as I recall. This in Washington. In November of 2014, PRG launched a 2-year political initiative out of Washington again that injected the ET issue into the 2016 presidential campaign. PRG recently launched a new exopolitical podcast out of Washington, The Disclosure Wire, based in the National Press Club building 2 blocks from the White House. Steve's involvement with ET political activism began back in 1996, when he worked as a volunteer for Harvard Medical School's Pulitzer Prize-winning biographer, Professor John Mack's program for extraterrestrial experience research. Bassett registered as Washington, D.C.'s first ET lobbyist, and in 1999 set up the Political Action Committee, Extraterrestrial Phenomena Political Action Committee. Between 2004 and 2010, Paradigm Research Group produced 6 X-File conferences, that kind of a way of saying exopolitics conferences, in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I was honored to speak at several of them. The first 5 were held in the Hilton Hotel in Gaithersburg, Maryland. The 6th conference was held at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. In 2013, Bassett's PRG sponsored the April 29 to May 3 citizen hearing on disclosure held at the National Press Club. Here, expert witnesses gave sworn testimony to 5 former U.S. congresspersons and 1 former U.S. senator, who we lost earlier this year and who we miss, alleging that the facts regarding ETs were being suppressed. From November 5th, 2014 through December 1st, 2016, Paradigm Research Group conducted a political initiative targeting presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. The purpose of the initiative was to put media pressure on Secretary Clinton to publicly address her connection and the connection of her husband, President Bill Clinton, and her campaign manager, John Podesta, to the extraterrestrial presence issue. This connection goes back to the Rockefeller Initiative, and that is Lawrence Rockefeller, 1993-1996, wherein Lawrence Rockefeller engaged the Clinton administration to release all government-held UFO files and grant amnesty to witnesses who might come forward with relevant information, an important detail. For more information on PRG, their main website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. I believe we've kind of kept it to that, but we'll find out momentarily. Stephen Bassett, welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth, my friend.
Peter, it's always a pleasure to be with you. You're one of the most eloquent, thoughtful, and knowledgeable people in this field. Just look at the library behind you. The first thing I want to say is, let me clarify. No, I'm not the only one. MUFON, a while back, hired a pretty established lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. To start lobbying on this issue, to its great credit. All right. The name escapes me. I think it's A3, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
Also, an organization was formed called UFO PAC, and they have registered as a lobbyist. So there's at least 3. All right. Okay. And who knows? There could be 10 within a couple of months.
Yeah. Right?
So I want to clarify that. And again, it's a pleasure to be with you. There's so much happening. Hit me with a question.
Yeah. Well, right off the bat, where do we find you? And is it true, as I've heard, that you are moving?
Essentially, I'm consolidating, for the time being, back to Los Angeles. There is a major project in the works that will be announced fairly soon. I wish I could tell you more now, but I cannot.
When you are able to?
I will have to, I'll have to leave the country or something if I do that. But it's coming, and I look forward to those announcements when they come out and talking about it on your show.
Thank you.
So it's an exciting time. It's no problem. My no connections to Washington remained, and very likely I'll be bilocated in the future, whenever that's appropriate. But believe me, I'm paying attention to Washington. I'll be paying attention to Washington from Los Angeles.
No doubt. Steve, let's begin with the fact that your last appearance on the show was, I believe, last spring. And the world had just shifted gears at that time. I think it was only weeks after I was about to say war, but it's no war. It's a special action. Oh, God, the games men play with language.
It's human stupidity is what it is.
Yeah, the murderous effects to destroy the Ukraine, initiated by President Putin. We are now coming into a very poignant time of year for Americans, Thanksgiving, an insane time of year for soccer fans, and a lot of saber-rattling has been going on. We have just come through a politically divisive series of elections, and these things have, to a degree, sucked a great deal of the air out of the room in the world of discourse. Where do you see disclosure and movement in the UFO-related issue at this moment in time, based on all these other factors that are going on around us?
Okay, you were out of yes or no questions, I'm gathering. Okay, very good. First of all endeavors have to take place in the context of all of history going on. So the fact that things speed up, slow down, or impacted by other events should not surprise or bother anybody. If a substantial meteor hits the Earth, I assure you, the disclosure process is going to be slowed down a little bit. But oh yeah, we live in interesting times. And there are some connections to some of these things. And in some cases, there are just other things happening which make it harder. All right. But I think I can help. I knew, and I've said it, if you dig deep enough, you can probably find it somewhere. Many times over the years, I said, look, as we approach the end of the truth embargo, things are going to get really complicated. If you don't think they're complicated now, wait till then. All right. And when I said that years ago, I had no thoughts about a global massive pandemic killing 20 million people. I had no idea that suddenly the Cold War would get strange and that Putin would do what he did. or that the politics in America would take some extraordinary turns. I mean, all of this was not in my mind. I was just referring to the fact that the very process of coming out from under a 6-7 decade policy of literally denying what is before our very eyes, and what massive amounts of research has been piling up, a lot of which, as you know, is going to be archived at David Marler's new organization. And I should also mention that there's a very large archive accumulating at Rice University. And there will be other archives, because guess what? As people realize this is a big deal, it deserves to have massive archives. And it's going to get them. So it was going to be complicated. And I just let people know, hey, so as it starts to come to an end, hang in there. All right. So let me elaborate. I knew that the process was going to be political. I knew that for it to happen appropriately, and the way it would likely happen is to engage the political class. Of course, there's going to have to be actions on the part of the military intelligence community. There was going to have to be a new level of journalism and so forth. And as that happened, naturally, the vast population in this world is not up to speed on this issue. We've always known that. Even now, it's still, there's a lot of people, they don't know. They've heard this, they've heard that, they don't know. And so as this huge development occurs and we start moving to disclosure, for the vast majority of people, whether or not they've seen 10 sci-fi movies about ETs or not, or whether they know nothing, they're basically starting to get this for the first time. It's starting to become real. And they're looking around, looking at this, looking at that, wondering what's going on? What does this mean? What does that mean? So it's going to be confusing. It's not going to be terrifying, but it's going to be confusing. And then everybody that's been involved in the issue, either for a year or 5 years or 10 years, 20 years, 25, 45, seriously. In other words, they're paying attention. They're reading books. They're into it. Yeah. They are going to be assessing it as well. And not surprisingly, because they know a lot and because they've invested in a lot of their life in this, they're reacting to every little thing that happens. If something happens, they immediately seize on it and look at it and go, what does this mean? What's the implication of that? Is this good? Is it bad? Are we going forward? Are we going backward? And whatever. All right. There's a lot of that going on. All right. I get it. But that's tough. All right. So what I do, there's so much going on at some point. You've got new podcasts forming all the time. You've got the old podcasts, whether they're video or audio, gaining more and more subscribers. You've got a massive Twitter group that's developing. You've got other social media. New organizations are forming, serious organizations. New scientists are getting involved. And I'm not just talking about the U.S. I'm talking about the UK, Italy, and so forth. All around the world, this is sort of happening. And there's no way to keep track of that. But it's happening. All right. And that's exactly what you would expect, because this is a big deal. So what I do is I just hop on a balloon and I take it on up to about, 10, 20,000 feet. And I just kind of look down, because I don't try to get into the granular stuff. There are plenty of people that are doing that. God bless them. But I'm looking down, trying to see as much of the total picture as possible, and then conveying what I see to people so that it will assuage their anxiety, maybe mitigate some fears, or at least eliminate some confusion. All right. And that's what I want to convey tonight. All right. Here's a few points.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the question, more from a historical perspective. We're old enough to remember a different world, the Cold War, its impact on us as young people. And at a certain point, and I'm trying to remember when it clicked in and who was the scientist or the group of scientists to initiate it, but it was something called the Doomsday Clock. And it's something that PRG has paid particular attention to. It essentially is based on the state of the tensions in the world, the potential for nuclear war, how many minutes before midnight we are. Over these past months, since the beginning of the special action in the Ukraine, more and more talk has been around the possibility and the potential for tactical nuclear ordnance to be used. Tactical is an incredibly dispassionate term. In this sense, it means essentially battlefield launched small weaponry. In fact, I know one possibility of launching a small nuclear device off of a ramp on the back of a Jeep. I find these things, like most sane people, extremely unnerving. And where we are right now, it brings up this longing that humanity has on a certain level with the advent of more and more taking seriously other intelligences visiting this planet from parts unknown for their own reasons. I think since the existential movement in the 50s and the idea that God is dead, we need a new pantheon of gods, and perhaps what will save us from ourselves. It's a theme in a great deal of science fiction. My point being, do you feel, with the understanding as you and I know, that we have ever so many documented cases of them turning off or activating nuclear codes and shutting down missile silos, etc., that there could ever come a time when the threat was so profound and the forces that somebody was so close to pushing a button, launching this conflagration, that they might actually become involved in I'll call it a public way. I know it's a totally theoretical question, but it's something I'm curious to know what you think or feel about.
Well, Lauren, this is a slice of the big picture that I was talking about, right? This is not granular. This is big picture. The Doomsday Clock was created in 1947 by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which was made up of atomic scientists, right? Because right at the beginning of the development of the bomb, many of the scientists involved realized, okay, we're doing this, we have to do it, but wait a minute. They did try to persuade Truman, don't drop it on people, right? They wanted him to drop it offshore or something that makes a point without doing that. He chose to do what he did. And then there were efforts right away amongst the scientists, like, look, let's get this under control as quickly as possible. Well, it was good thinking on their part, but it wasn't going to happen. So one of the ways that those that were deeply concerned about what they had created, they started the Doomsday Clock. They set it at 7 minutes to midnight. It's currently 100 seconds to midnight. And they created it because they knew that over the years, if based on circumstances, if they changed it, it would get news. There would be press conference. The news would pay attention. It was their way of keeping people aware of, look, we created this in 1945, and it's threatening us. It's going to continue to threaten us. Please pay attention and think about doing something about it. That's the Doomsday Clock. One of my contributions to the big picture is that in 1998, I came up with the concept of the paradigm clock, which I published to my website. It's still there. You have to go deep into the website to find it, but where I created a different clock, but I retroactively published it to 1947. I imagine that I had published it in 1947, which is totally appropriate because that's when Roswell happened, and Roswell really happened. And I set it to 7 minutes to midnight, just like the Doomsday Clock. But the paradigm clock is about disclosure. Paradigm clock, midnight on that clock is 1 second after the heads of state of a major nation, immediately followed by the rest, confirms that this phenomena is non-human. Maybe they can say where it's from or not, but it's not human. It wasn't made here. It's not piloted or controlled by human beings. It's another non-human intelligence. That's disclosure. That's midnight of the paradigm clock. And then I published a chronicle showing how over the years from 47 on, things happened that kind of moved it closer, far away. It wasn't bad. I finally sort of ran out of room, but I created this metaphor. Doomsday Clock, paradigm clock. All right. These are two very different clocks, obviously. Over the years, I came to realize that, boy, are they connected in ways I didn't fully understand in 1997, 1998. Because eventually, I became quite aware that probably the most significant things that non-human intelligence engaging us has done, and I'm sure there's some contactees out there that are going, hey, the most significant thing that they have ever done is they've been, visiting me in my bedroom at 2 a.m. since I was 6 years old. Well, yeah, that's important to you. I understand that. But the most significant thing in the broad picture, and this has been confirmed absolutely 100%,
repeatedly,
is that they come down, a craft, clearly not a balloon, clearly not a drone, hover over nuclear facilities containing ICBMs, not only in the United States, but in the Soviet Union. How many times is not known, but we know there's already evidence for a number of times that makes me think that there's probably a number of other times it was, how would you say, contained? And they turn our missiles off, one by one. And almost everyone involved agrees that it can't be done. You just can't do it, right? They're all separate, they're isolated. You might be able to get to one, but to get to them all in that rapid, impossible. Okay. And we also learned, and this is maybe even more profound, that on at least, I'm going to say 2 occasions, and any researchers out there that can clearly correct me don't have to do so. I love being corrected. At least once in the U.S., once in the Soviet Union, they put them into launch cycle, which is not turning them on. It's putting them into position to launch, and none of the people in the facilities could stop it. So a lot of them pretty much were stressed. And at the last minute, it was turned off. Now, these actions on the part of what I believe are the ETs, I have no doubt, are the most important of all, period. Everything else they do, it's cool, it's interesting, genetics, they may take blood and tissues from animals, that's interesting, whatever. Crop circles, all interesting. Nothing compares to this, because obviously there is a reason, and a lot of people are spending a lot of thought trying to figure out what is that reason, and we're all arriving at our own personal conclusions. Though I think a consensus is developing. I know it's developing amongst the witnesses who have come forward with affidavits. They've given press conferences and have been trying for 30 years to get before the United States Congress to testify on this, but Congress will not touch them. And the Air Force pretends they don't exist, because this testimony, no disrespect meant to the pilots, Dietrich and Fravor and so many of the other people that have come forward, pretty important testimony, tic-tac, pretty cool. This testimony is absolutely significant, profound, and has to be presented to Congress and the American people. And so it's clear that there is a profound connection between our nuclear weapons and the presence of these ETs. It's not the only reason that they are here. They've been around for a very long time, well before we even had, the internal combustion engine. But right now, and if you look at the intensity of the engagement, the amount of activity going on, the amount of sightings and so forth, has accelerated from Roswell on, and is now really accelerating. The number of sightings being reported is staggering. And I don't think it's just because people are paying attention. There is this incredible connection. Okay, so this is an example of a big picture thing that I invite people to think about, okay, and struggle with, try to understand and make the connections they can make. Now, to answer your question, would extraterrestrials, as they have done in at least one occasion that was filmed, where they knocked a dummy warhead off of a test missile.
Yes.
Would they simply decommission, destroy whatever nuclear weapons launched by accident or intention? All I can say is they have the ability to do it. I think nobody will deny they have more than enough craft, in our near surround to do it, and they have the ability to do it. Would they do it? I don't know, and I don't want to find out. That is an all-in move on our part, meaning let's just find out. Let's launch all the nukes and we'll find out. It's all in. You either win it all or you lose it all. We can't afford to do that. And so I invite most people, simply take that off the table. Just don't invest in it at all. Now, why? I mean, why not? I mean, if you want to hold that hope out, okay, go ahead. But here is the downside to that. and it doesn't apply to everybody, but people that are in a position to really help the disclosure process forward, to the extent that they're thinking, well, the ETs, if we launched it, our missiles, we'll just turn them off, are not going to be as engaged or as intense about getting this issue resolved. Let's just talk about nuclear weapons reduction, which we've just pretty much given up on, right? Okay. In fact, we have right now nuclear weapons expansion again. Where's the effort on that? Well, it's not there. And so if I don't want anybody sitting around going, well, we really need to start dealing with the nuclear weapons issue and start reducing those warheads. But if they get used, the ETs will turn them off. Bad idea. All right. So that is my answer to that question. Now, let me get into a couple of things real quick, Peter. As I said before, everybody is trying to react to every little granular thing that happens, and it's very confusing. So let me give you a couple of points, and then I want to take us to something I think you'll find important. First of all, is there a significant effort at the Department of Defense to bring to, and again, in the way the way the Department of Defense works, which is, it's not, tomorrow we'll get that done. No. These are incredibly complicated, elaborate processes where they set up something very extensive. So if you ask the Department of Defense to set up a full group in order to deal with potential sabotage in the oceans of telephone lines or gas pipelines, my God, there will be 20, 15 offices, and they've got to cover this, that, and everything else. They got to appoint people. It's a big deal. Probably costs too much, maybe too big. But that's the way they work. Is the process of building a very extensive cross-agency working group, which will involve 1,000 or more people, to service all of the requests of the United States Congress in this issue? Absolutely. It is underway. I know this as fact. Okay? So that's happened. 2, is the United States Congress, in the form of legislation, fully engaging, getting this process going, and seeing to it that it's done properly, right? Absolutely. That is happening. All right. So great. All right. That's good. We should all be thrilled about this. But here's where it gets a little tricky. And I'll just give you one example. I don't want to beat this to death. There was a report due on October 31. There's been a number of things requesting a report here, report there, whatever. And that's part of the process. Okay. They asked for a report. Nothing wrong with that. Though a lot of people are out there going, screw the report, right? I want you to bring out the damn ETs and the crash vehicles and whatever, and let's get on with this. No. This is part of the process, setting up structure. Well, that report has been late. Okay. Now, there's any number of reasons that a report from the Department of Defense could be late, but immediately everybody's going online and talking about, they're backing out. It's a false flag. It's a ruse. It's this, it's that, and everything else. And they're all getting worked up. And I'm going, well, look, if you knew more about the Pentagon, you realize there's nothing unusual about this at all. And keep in mind that report was scheduled, and they tend to wait to the last minute. They come out on October 31st, 8 days before one of the most significant midterm elections in the history of the country.
Yes.
And so forth. So please, let's chill. All right. So that's an example. So overall, everything is moving forward as it should be. I am totally happy with this. And I got 26 years invested. All right. So if anybody who needs to be impatient, it would be me. Get on with it. Right. I'm loving this. The amount that is being accomplished, the pace that is being accomplished in the context of what the United States is going through right now, what's happening in the world, no problem. All right. Okay. Now, here's where it gets really complicated. And I've said this many times, and I'm going to have to say it many, many more times, because it is, to me, and I'm getting an article together, which I'm hoping will be published as an op-ed soon in a significant publication. We'll see. I got to edit it down and make it perfect. The point is that this is where it gets interesting, and I hope people get it. And if you don't, and if I don't say it strongly, clearly enough, Peter, please, let's go back over it and give me your input.
Sure.
Everything that you see happening is the creation of a public-facing engagement of the UAP issue by the United States Congress and by the military intelligence complex, mostly based out of the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
Now, point one. Point two, guess what? All of this should have happened in 1953. They had the perfect opportunity to do it. Yeah. There had been 5 years since Roswell. Things were relatively under control, but there was leakage here and there, and people were seeing things, but it was okay. Post World War, there was, situation in developing in Korea, the Korean War's distraction, but overall, and then suddenly, and this was no accident, like they wandered off course or something, you had 2 huge flyovers in Washington, D.C. Over 2 weekends in July, second half of July. Scared the hell out of certainly the military intelligence people, journalists and so forth. Tragically, this was again 1952. Nobody was able to run outside and get photos of this. Now, or if there were a few photos, they have not seen the light of day.
Correct.
However, there were a number of recreations, and you see these on the internet, basically recreated photos that try to demonstrate what people saw, but they're not actual photos. I acknowledge that. And the most famous one is it shows what people saw flying over the Capitol itself. Now, this scared the hell out of the government. What it told them is, okay, look, we got a crash vehicle. Maybe they have a couple. We've got some dead ETs. We had a live ET. Okay. But it's sort of under control. Apparently, they're not going to get carried away. Oh boy, apparently they are, and they're going. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And so what they did is later in 1952, they pulled together a panel called the Robertson Panel. Almost most of your listeners know about this, or viewers know about this. To, how would you say, discussing the issue and how to deal with it. And the Robertson Panel in early 1953, came to this decision, one of the most fateful decisions in all of human history. Mm-hmm. They had 2 real possibilities. One was to start launching a public-facing engagement of this phenomena with legislation from the House and Senate asking the Department of Defense and the Air Force and other entities to start engaging it in a public way and studying it and this and that, what have you, so that the public could come to understand what is going on and just to do what is appropriate. That's not what they did, right? What they chose to do was, and we know this from the report, which eventually surfaced, is that, and as the report stated, even with the flyby in the second half of July 52, the conclusion was that the phenomena did not seem to pose a threat to the human race or the planet. But the growing interest in it by the public could be a problem. And so from that conclusion, and this is the formal beginning of the truth embargo. The informal beginning is when they pulled Mac Brazel off the street and took him in to interrogate him for a week and said, "You will never talk about this. Here's a nice truck." But the formal is 1953. And they chose to do that. And then as part of the, I guess you could say, the cover, launched Project Blue Book. Okay, we're studying it. We're looking at stuff. I think they had 4 or 5 people in the office and they did this and that, whatever, but it was all a ruse. That was the decision they made, as opposed to set up the full public facing thing. Let's look into this. Let's keep the people informed. That was 1953. They didn't do it. Yeah. What they are doing now is exactly that. What they should have done in 1953. Okay, people say, well, fine, good. Okay, but again, here is where it gets complicated. You see, they've known about the phenomena, and of course, they've known that it's non-human. They've had technology. They've been studying and tracking, and God knows what level of research that they have done, because they spend a lot of money. They have a lot of facilities. We have no idea. And I assure you, the more important the research, the less likely that anybody outside of a USAP knows. Since 1947. So they have known all along. And so now that they finally are creating the public-facing program and all the bells and whistles and everything right. They just have one problem. They have to do it as if it's 1953. Wow, this is probably worth attention. This is worth some legislation. This is worth a working group. We should do this. We should do that. Now, some of the people that are involved in this don't know better. That's all right. I mean, they don't know. They're like, hey, great, we're involved. This is good. Let's do this. But I assure you, across the military intelligence community, in every single agency, in every single military service, in the United States Congress, there are people that know as fact that, yeah, I mean, they've been here since 1947 at least, and we have these programs. So those are the ones, obviously, that have the biggest dilemma. All right. And so what they're trying to do is to do the right thing 70 years later. All right. And they can't do it this way. I mean, you can't have somebody come forward and say, oh, look, we need to pass some legislation in order to get some reports from Congress about this phenomena, which we've known was ET since 1947. They can't do that. It would shut it all down. It would create a problem. They have to go through what amounts to a necessary charade. All right. In other words, and if you listen carefully to some of the key people, I'm not going to get into the individuals that are talking about this a lot, and you read between the lines, what they're saying is, look, you know a lot of stuff. You've been studying this for years. We know that, and we know that you know that we know that. Just give us a break here, right? Just kind of cool it and let us get this done. Let us go through the proper processes and set up the proper organizations. All right. And that will take things where you want it to go, which is you want the confirmation. Give us this space. Now, I am happy to do that. More than happy to do that. And there is a reason, because given the situation that they're facing, there's some very powerful reasons why it needs to be done this way, even though it's awkward, even though there has to be, how would you say, some audacity, or at least not the complete truth, or a lot of things can't be said. And you're constantly hearing statements from people about, well, I can't go there, I've got an NDA and so forth, right? There's some good reasons for it. One, I have no fear that the public is going to go nuts if they get a firm confirmation. I have no problem with that. I don't think our economy is going to collapse or anything like that. But still, it's a big deal, right? And so doing it in an orderly fashion, right? Setting up structure and everything is going to be more responsible, okay? More importantly, this is a big country with a lot of moving parts, right? And nobody, this issue, this reality doesn't belong to one person or one agency or one country. It's a global thing. And so the Congress needs to be involved. The Defense Department needs to be involved. The journalists need to finally get on board and do their job and tell the people all of this is appropriate, right? It's what do they call it? Normalizing. That's good, okay? And that needs to happen, okay? And then there's a second reason. Look, the United States government has made some big mistakes in my lifetime and yours. I think we know that, right? Pretty big mistakes. Sometimes they apologize, sometimes they don't. Big governments do bad things. Even good governments do bad things, right? And our country has done that. This will be viewed historically as probably a mistake, meaning not getting this done back in 1953. But they've done what they've done. And they know that once this thing finally is resolved, at least the confirmation part, they're in for some heat. There's going to be a lot of blowback. There's going to be a lot of criticism and what have you. And government's under a lot of pressure already. And so, consequently, by going through this process and showing the flag and doing what they're supposed to do, when the day comes, and it'll come after disclosure, after the confirmation event, the next day, a week, a month, I don't know. Somebody, the appropriate person, is going to come forward and say something along the lines of, look, we're totally engaging this issue now, as you know, and we're making things public, as you know, and we're doing the right thing. But we should tell you that we've known all about it since the 40s. And we
Agreed.
not go there for national security reasons. We can elaborate if you like, and we're sorry if you're upset. And because of all the work they're doing now, setting up this public-facing thing, most people are going to go, that's okay. The newer people, the new kids, the Gen Zs, millennials, they don't care. But a lot of the people that might normally be pretty upset will say, okay. So in that sense, it's taking heat off the government. It's minimizing, nastiness. And it just makes it easier for the government to face up to this issue. I respect that. Okay. And then the third thing, and this is important. Guess what? If disclosure were to happen, let's say that none of this was going on. Okay. None of this was happening. No legislation, no working groups, none of that. And then suddenly another head of state, Xi Jinping, confirmed the extraterrestrial presence, trotted out a huge amount of evidence, making the point absolutely clear. Guess what? Every single thing that is being done over the last couple of years, all of the public-facing structure is going to have to be set up anyway, because the demand for information, the engagement of the world in the issue will go up 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
And so they're still going to have to do it, but now they're getting it done ahead of time, right? So all of the stuff is not going to be wasted. It's going to be put to real use once disclosure comes. So when you see it from 10,000 feet that way, I'm inviting people to go, wow, okay, I can be patient, not indefinitely, but I appreciate what you're doing. I support it. And I'm watching very carefully that you don't start backtracking. And I am watching for that. This late report is not a backtrack. I can tell you, I know enough to say that the disclosure process is absolutely not going to retrograde. It is going forward. It is never going backward again. The truth embargo days are absolutely numbered, and that we should feel confident that this is going to happen. And that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, we're back. Steve, shifting gears again, and we're about less than 10 minutes from our break. One of our guests in the chat room asked the question, and purely subjective response here, do you think some of our technological advancements over the past 60, 70 years have been specifically given to us by, for lack of a better term, them, as opposed to the proposition that's often put forward, if you feel that's the case, that we have engineered, we have back engineered, we have taken things down to the hairpins, gotten the basic technology down, and then gone off on our own. Any particular feeling on that, one way or the other?
There's limitations to what we could know there, but here's my take. First of all, the very presence of the ETs, their anti-gravitic craft moving around as they do, obviously confirms that you can do it. And so for the last 75 years, a whole lot of people seeing that it's possible, that makes it a lot easier to throw themselves into figuring out how it's done. And so in that regard, they have profoundly stimulated anti-gravitic research. Now, in terms of anti-gravitic craft and so forth, that's all absolutely classified, and any of that's going on. And because of the truth embargo, in terms of serious public efforts to do that research, it's not happening. The truth embargo prevented that, confining it just to the military intelligence community, meaning MIT has never announced a full-bore, heavily funded effort to solve the problem of how you can fly craft anti-gravitics. So it's government. So that's one thing. Secondly, we know they have crashed vehicles. The evidence is clear they have crashed vehicles. How many, we don't know. We'll probably be shocked when we find out the actual number, but they have vehicles. Anybody who thinks that they would just bury them in the ground and try to forget them is, not thinking clearly. They're going to take everything they have and they're going to study it down to the molecule. And so they've had these vehicles and they've had whatever tech is inside of them. And there's evidence pointing here and there. So we know that. Okay. So now those are two things that we definitely know. Have the extraterrestrials engaged the government directly, sat down, had a chat, over lunch or whatever, and agreed, hey, we'll give you some tech. You give us, the Western Pacific or whatever the hell. I have no idea. And it's all speculation. And the evidence for it is minimal. But,
exactly. Myth, legend, lore.
Yeah, but it could have happened. And I won't be shocked if that happened, but I don't think
I agree.
So, no. Now the other question is, all right, of of all of the research done in the secret programs of every country because they knew that antigravitics was possible. And by the way, it also stimulates the issue of extra-luminal travel, because the base conclusion is they're from other planets. Not absolute certain, but that's the most likely, and that means extraluminal travel is almost certainly possible. So that stimulates that effort, and believe me, it has. There's efforts all around the world in various places trying to solve the faster than light problem, the relativity issue generally. So there's that. But just in terms of what they have learned from the research and so forth, what of any of that has gotten into, quote, the public domain? And what if any of that has gotten into the secret domain? Now, what do I mean by that? Has extraterrestrial derived technology through re-engineering and study and research been used in our offensive weapon systems and in other deployments? Obviously, secretly, they wouldn't acknowledge it, okay? It's an interesting point, and there's been speculation on that, and people have talked about it and so forth. We don't know for sure. So that's one point. To what extent has anything we've learned from the ET reality that is known to the government but not to us, or rather is directly engaged by the government, not us, has made it into just the public domain, commercial? Now, that becomes a significant issue when Corso publishes his book. Or Bill Burns writes essentially Corso's story. He basically says that's exactly what they did. It's possible. Okay. It's not a profound thing to me. Not profound. All right. If they had granted some company the ability to build anti-gravity craft, and that company had been secretly flying around, that would be a big deal. So they may have stimulated the technological growth of the last 70 years. Not a bad thing, really, but we don't know. I believe post-disclosure, we will find out. There won't be much of a barrier there. So that's basically my response to that question. And again, as you can see, it's more of an overview. There are people that will go into granular detail about this particular doc, referring to that, and somebody that got interviewed in 1962, and they were at Area 51. I get it. But that's the general sense that I think that I have, and that I would offer to the public who isn't going to take the time to go deep into the subject.
We're going to pick up this question on the other side, but let me just kick it off now. Going back to about New Year's and thinking where we are at this moment in the latter part of November, looking at the Sturm und Drang, the interactions between elected officials who are seriously involved in this subject. How do you think things have progressed this year over the past 11 months or so, considering how much distractions, for lack of a better term, there have been internationally on the political scene, et cetera?
It's been great. I'm happy to elaborate much detail on that.
Please.
But I think we're about to the break. How much time have we got to the break?
Oh, we have no time at all. This is Peter Robbins and my special guest for this evening, Stephen Bassett. We will be back with Meanwhile Here on Earth in 4 minutes. Stay with us. Oh.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
It's not just a donation.
It's a warm blanket.
It's a bottle of clean water.
It's a roof and a bed.
It's knowing someone cares.
It's feeling safe.
It's a today that's better than yesterday.
Every dollar you can spare helps so much more than you can imagine. Please, donate now to help people affected by Hurricane Ian. Your support is urgently needed.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
We can continue then. This past year in Congress, in terms of officialdom moving forward, of initiatives either being taken or missed, how do you look back on this year from that balloon that you're in 20,000 feet up?
Yeah, let me expand a little bit. The creation of this public-facing engagement of this issue, the most important issue in the world, was going to involve legislation. Okay, it was not going to happen by a presidential executive order, I can assure you. Now, there are some other countries that wouldn't have to go through legislation. If the leader wanted to tell the people, they would just do it. Okay, and that could happen at any time. If it does, it does. But in the United States, it was going to involve legislation. And when it comes to legislation, the vast majority of American people have no idea what is involved. You know, there was this little video that went around years ago, how to make a bill, and people were thrilled about that. And they watched it and they go, oh, that's how it's done. You can't imagine. We're a democracy. And we have rules, and we have 435 members of the House, 100 members of the Senate, and we have a process. And legislation is difficult. There have been significant issues in our country where the effort to get the legislation done to effectuate something took 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. the way it is. You don't like it, move to another country. In this issue, finally, in the last 3 years, we have had major language put into the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2021, 2022, and 2023. Now, if any of your viewers has got a really slow weekend going at some point, all you have to do is start with 2021 and Google Intelligence Authorization Act 2021. Okay? And when you find it, all of this stuff is at congress.gov, by the way. When you find it, all you have to do is do a word search on unidentified, and every single part of that bill dealing with this issue comes right up. And it's substantial. Okay? Same for 2022. Call up the 2022 Intelligence Authorization Act, then do a word search on identified and read it all. Read all those sections. And that brings us to 2023. Now, that bill has not been finalized yet. It's very soon. It's going to go under what is called reconciliation, in which the Senate version and the House version there'll be a group that comes together, and their job is to come up with the final version, reconciles both bills. Sometimes this is easy, sometimes it's hard. Yeah. And as soon as that reconciliation draft is done, it's then passed by the House and Senate, boom, goes to the president, signs it, that's it. So right now, there are two versions of the 2023 Intelligence Authorization Act. And all you have to do to find them is, well, again, it's on congress.gov. You could search there, or you could just go to Google and Google House 2023 Intelligence Authorization Act. And then Google Senate 2023 Intelligence Authorization Act. And they just pop right up, and then you do a word search on unidentified and go to town. Now, I have read these bills, okay? It's really fun. The most important one is the Senate bill. Now, the House bill is written in very different ways, but you can see where it's still connected. I don't see any serious conflicts, but there are some things in the Senate bill that don't turn up in the House bill. I'm not sure about the other way around.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's the Senate version, which was introduced by Mark Warner, the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, that has the heavyweight. All right. That's the one that that language is most likely to be there. And so that's the one I want to talk about.
Yes.
All right. And give people that 20,000 foot view. All right. So one of the first things you find out when you read these two bills is that the working group that's being set up under the overarching concept of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force is getting another name. I think it's its fifth one. Okay. The last name that was in play was Arrow. Okay. Which is a good name, Arrow. I think it's advanced aerospace object, whatever. But the new name, if this is what goes through, is called the Aerial Object Identification and Management Synchronization Management Group. Now, there's two things I can say about that. First of all, it generates an acronym that is might as well be in Japanese, Swahili. I mean, forget it, right? In which case, in other words, it's going to minimize it getting a lot of exposure because of a clever acronym, right? So if they want to keep a lower profile of their acronym, they're safe because nobody can get it. Secondly, but the second part is anything with that name has got to be heavy, right? Anything with a name like that's going to get some money. It's going to get a lot of attention. This is a big deal. And this is the way it works, particularly within the Department of Defense. As they get engaged in something, they'll give it a name, right? Basic name. And then it starts to grow. And they have their meetings and they decide what the agenda is. Maybe the Congress steps in and says, we need to do this, we need to do that. And so it keeps growing. And so they have to come up with another name that reflects where they're at. And then it grows some more. And they come up with another name, okay? It literally, so the name reflects the growth, the width and scope of the project, which I've told you is going to be a cross-agency group. And so Aerial Object Identification and Management Synchronization Management Group says that this is going to have a lot of stuff. Okay, now I'm going to switch over now to the Senate bill.
Please.
Now, the Senate bill has 3 key sections, 703, 704, 705, 3 full sections developed to gauge to what the next step is and what they want, right? This is on top of the previous 2 bills, okay? And in section 703, there's just one little part I'll go to, and it's referring to the core group. In other words, what they're going to set up is what is called a working group. And it involves a lot of people. It also has to have certain offices that support it and what have you, because you got personnel, you got public relations, you got all this legislative liaison, all kind of stuff. I mean, when you set up these kind of things, there's a lot of things that happen. They're going to be there. Whether they should be there, whether they're spending too much money, I don't know. It's how it's done, right? And the working group is cross-agency. Working groups can be confined just to the Pentagon, or they can be confined to 2 entities. This is a cross-agency group because the issue obviously lends itself to that, all right? And so this is what they call the core group. So this is identifying what they're going to set up, which is a cross-agency working group. And here's what they have to say about that. Not later than 180 days after the date of the enactment of the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal 2023. It gives them 6 months, quote, from the enactment, which will happen later this year. Does that mean, it says not later than, does that mean they're going to wait 6 months to start setting up? Hell no, they're setting it up right now. They've been setting it up for about a year. So don't worry. But they're basically saying, look, you definitely have to have it all set up in 6 months, right? But it'll be set up before that. The director of the office, the director of the office, referring to the office that they're setting up, the one we just talked about, the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence shall jointly establish a core group, that means working group, within the office. In other words, within that office, there is going to be a working group that it's dealing with that shall include, at minimum, representatives from all relative and appropriate security clearances. Establish a core group within the office that shall include, at a minimum, representatives with all relevant and appropriate security clearances from the following. So what's in this working group? Let's see. The Central Intelligence Agency, I've heard of them. The National Security Agency, yes, I've heard of them. The National Reconnaissance Office, the Air Force, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
How about the Space Force?
Not mentioned.
Interesting.
Yeah. But remember, it says it's not limited to that, but will include at a minimum. Okay. My understanding is there's probably, I think, 6 or 7 more already that are probably going to be in that. Remember, this is in the legislation, right? That has been, but there's 6 or 7 more. So again, for those that are out there, what is this real or not? Again, just imagine that they're in public legislation saying that representatives with the right clearances from all of these entities will be responding to an office an office that I'll mention in a minute that we have the name for, which I already forgotten. No way I can remember that name. Nobody can remember that name. Going forward on this issue. Hey, who could want more than that? I mean, that's as much as you could possibly want. Now, what I'm going to do now is drop down to section 704. I invite people to read all this. It's government speak, so take it easy, have a glass of wine, whatever. But it's in section 704 where things get really interesting. So let me go on down here. Section 704 is entitled Unidentified Aerospace Undersea Phenomena Reporting Procedures. Okay. Notice they constantly now refer to aerospace undersea phenomena reporting.
Interesting, isn't it?
Now, a lot of people go, why all undersea stuff? Why is that a big deal? Why does it matter? Again, remember, the principal problem of setting up this now public facing program and not having to get pounded on later for like trying to screw around with again, as they did back in the 1950s, is, you got to address the phenomena. And while everybody is known for their whole life about these things flying around that nobody can explain and can do things that human craft cannot do, over those same periods, but more recently, in other words, the flying phenomena was obvious in the 40s and the 50s and so forth. But as we move forward in the Cold War, as you know, there was the development of massive submarine technology.
Yes.
Okay. Nuclear subs, greater depths, tons of them out there all over the place. And so during that period, not surprisingly, it turns out that they were encountering things moving around in the ocean faster than whales, faster than our subs, hell, faster than a space,
Exactly.
And guess what? Because this was being noticed by people on a U.S. nuclear submarine or a Soviet submarine, it didn't make it into the New York Times. It wasn't being seen by the average person. We didn't have the kinds of sightings that were commonly, seen and reported for decades. No, the average person wasn't going to see or have any awareness of something moving underwater, a serious object at 200 miles an hour. And so it was contained. But thanks to the work of a lot of researchers, Paul Stonehill, for instance, I think has done a lot of work there, and others, and a lot of researchers that got into the undersea thing, and they started to bring out, and it started to emerge. And by the time we got to the present period, when the legislation was going to begin, and this was stimulated also by, of course, the events of 2017 with the release of the videos and, of course, the reports and so forth, and the evidence that came out, the underwater stuff emerged. That's the word to use. It emerged, and it became a factor. Finally, it was real. Now the government had two choices: to make the same mistake they made a long time ago, underwater stuff, 200 miles an hour. You're out of your crazy mind. No, that's not happening. There's no reports of that. Blah 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 blah. But no. They're wise enough to go. No. We're not going to make that mistake again. Okay, because if you got pilots coming around saying, "Look, I saw a tic tac," it's only a matter of time before you've got some former submarine captains coming forward and say, "Look, I was on duty such and such a night, such and such a day, and we saw several things pass by at 250 miles an hour, and they were solid object." And so they realized we got to include the undersea stuff too. All right, and of course the Navy, I'm sure, wanted to be part of this, and so they made the wise decision to include it. In other words, we're not going to be caught with our pants down on this. All right. So they added the undersea. And that's great. That not only is that a cool thing because it alerts people that, hey, these things can go underwater too.
Yeah.
We're talking about the same craft. It's not like the ETs have a Navy. They fly and they go into the water and do anything they want, right?
I have to interrupt for a minute and say, many years ago when I was first beginning to explore this subject, I was lucky enough to come upon the best entry-level book on this subject, Ivan T. Sanderson's Invisible Residents. I encourage anybody to get a copy. There are more updated studies on this now, but Sanderson was a wonderful writer, very courageous researcher. And it occurred to me that if these intelligences could make craft that could go billions of miles through space, or let's just say a scout craft, for lack of a better term, that's only designed to come and go from mothership and do tens of thousands of miles,
which is the most likely outcome.
Yes, waterproof. If they can do that, sure.
Waterproof.
Continuing along.
Now, how they move through water with those speeds, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm sure they can do it. I happen to believe that these craft are not interstellar. I believe there are other craft, and there's been talk about that. And those craft don't turn up. Those don't get seen much at all. Occasionally, maybe, but that's another, whatever.
Sure.
Right? I wait the details on it. But the point I'm making here is that when I talk about the 20,000-foot view, you see just the simple addition of underwater or undersea to the legislation has so many significant implications that most people, the average person who's not up on this, have no idea. Why is that important? What does it mean? It's very significant. And so when you look at the larger picture, I'm looking for these kinds of things. Okay. And so that is there. So that is what the section is called. Now, if this legislation goes through, and I'm almost certain it will, because when it comes to the Intelligence Authorization Act, they don't screw around with that, right? They don't have big fights over it, right? It's like, that's what it is. Boom, it goes out. It's defense. The Republicans are big on defense. The Democrats are pretty fine on defense. They're not going to argue too much about how the DOD should do this or do that. So I think this language is going to go through. There is some mind-blowing stuff in this section 704. Let me just go down, and hopefully I won't have to scroll too much.
And after we discuss 704 and the other two sections, I want you to once again give the URL that people can go to begin to study this for themselves.
Yeah, I will be happy to do it. It's not an URL. It's mostly just a simple Google search. No problem. There's a standard. There's a whole bunch of stuff in these sections about setting up this, setting up that, who's in charge of this, who's in charge of that. All of the bells and whistles that you have to do something within the Department of Defense or within our military intelligence community. A lot of people are going, we don't need all that stuff. Just get the information out, right? Just go to us, right? Do what you got to do. This is all, wait, no. This is the way it has to be. But the fact is, it's happening. So chill, right? Okay. This is the one that this blows my mind. Let me put it this way. If this bill gets passed in about 30 days and gets signed, and this language is in there, all I can say is, folks, that's all anyone needs to know, is that they're really serious about this. It is in Section C, Item 1. Okay. It is called Identification of Non-Disclosure Agreements. Seems innocuous enough, doesn't it? Okay. I'm going to read it very slowly because I want people to grok this. Okay. The Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the heads of such other departments and agencies of the federal government that have supported investigations of the types of events covered by subparagraph A, and I think we know what those events are. Okay, let me read that. The heads of such other departments and agencies of the federal government, that's the whole federal government, that have supported investigations of the types, whether known or unknown investigations, distinction, covered by subparagraph A, which is, of course, UAP. It's not balloons. It's only UAP. It's not anything else but that. Of subparagraph A, subsection B1, and activities and programs described in subparagraph B, which is other stuff, of such subsection and this is important, and contractors of the federal government supporting such activities and programs. So we're talking about the entire federal government and any investigations that have happened in any of those entities, okay, including defense contractors, okay, that might have been dealing in this area, shall conduct comprehensive searches of all records relating to non-disclosure orders or agreements or other obligations relating to the types of events described in subsection A, and provide copies of all relevant documents to the UAP task force or the subgroup, cross-agency group. That means, let me just put it simple. Let's assume that that some of the Nimitz pilots were forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement with respect to what they knew. I don't think they did, but let's say they were. And they never came forward. And so we didn't have, at least Fravor was not one of the people that ends up being in play and so forth. Yeah. That non-disclosure agreement, a copy of that is now being ordered, if that bill passed, to be sent to the UAP task force working group, cross-agency working group. And then they would know who issued it, about what event, what matter, and to whom. And they're asking for all of them. Okay, they don't specify or subtract special access programs or unacknowledged special access programs. They're saying across the agency. So if somebody's sitting there in a secret program and says, well, you don't even know about me, I'm not going to send you squat. Well, they're at risk. But even if some of those are withheld, even if there's some parts of the U.S. government or the unacknowledged programs, special access programs, and they hold them back, they're going to get enough non-disclosure agreements relating to this phenomena and people that have been kept from coming forward legally to blow this thing wide open. But more importantly, by simply putting that in there, they're sending a message to the entire United States government and all federal contractors. Guys, we're serious about this. We're not playing around here. Okay, they don't have to put that in there. They didn't have to put any of that in there. I had no idea that was coming. They could have left that out and kind of fiddled around with it. That would have taken less pressure off the agencies. No, there it is. That is huge. So that's one, okay? Now let me cruise on down here a little bit. Okay. Under the section Protection from Liability and Private Right of Action. Okay. Section 1, protection from liability. It shall not be a violation of any law, and no cause of action shall lie or be maintained in any court or other tribunal against any person for reporting any information through and in compliance with the system established pursuant to subsection B1. What they've just said is if you are now, this is not referring to people running down to the New York Times with a bunch of classified files that they stuck in their briefcase. They're saying that anybody within the government, within the appropriate channels that provides information related to this subsection B1, which is UAP, there can be no liability to them. Okay. That kind of says some message out there, doesn't it, to a lot of people? Does that lower the bar? Does that take some of the stress out? You bet it does. Section 2, just to show you how serious they are. Prohibition on reprisals. Okay? An employee of a federal agency and an employee of a contractor for the federal government who has the authority to take, direct others to take, recommend, or approve any personnel action shall not, with respect to such authority, take or fail to take, or threaten to take, or fail to take a personnel action, including the revocation or suspension of security clearances with respect to any individual as a reprisal for any reporting as described in paragraph 1. Why is this important? The number one method of keeping things under control during the truth embargo within the good people, both in command and serving command, is, if you speak about this, we're going to take your flight privileges away, or we're going to reduce your security clearance, or whatever. And they're going to take them up in a helicopter and drop them into the ocean. This is the simple way to do it. All right. And they just punched a massive hole right through their number one take. And now we go on to section 3, the pièce de résistance. Okay, pièce de résistance. Private right of action. This is how far they have gone in this bill. And again, for people that know nothing about the history of this issue, they go, no big deal, no big deal. But you and I know how important it is. Private right of action. In a case in which an employee described in paragraph 2 takes a personnel action against an individual in violation of such paragraph, meaning someone has come forward and given information to whoever appropriately suddenly finds they got a problem. The individual, meaning the person targeted, may bring a private civil action for all appropriate remedies, including injunctive relief and compensatory and punitive damages against the government or other employer who took the personnel action in a federal district court of competent jurisdiction. Now, people that knows some things about government and the history of government and the military intelligence complex knows the government goes to great lengths to make it very difficult for you to sue it. Okay? There's so many situations where you can't sue the government. They just went out of their way to say, hey, look, if in our efforts to set up this public-facing engagement of the issue and get the information to the American people, and we're going to be talking to people and others, and it's going to be ongoing, and you're involved and say something, and your boss gives you a hard problem, does damage to you, go sue him. Sue us. Okay, was that happening back in 1950, 60, 70? I don't think so. This message, think about this. It's saying to everybody in the United States government, if it passes, if you want to screw around with what's going on now because you just think there's just no way that people can handle the truth, or it's wrong, it's national security, they never know about this, you could get sued if you screw around with the process. Let me tell you something. I've been in it for 26 years. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever see that language in an intelligence appropriations bill. So that gives you a taste, just a taste of, well, it's the hype, it's some of the major points. So I invite everybody out there who is wringing their hands over late reports or reading something on the internet where somebody takes a deep dive and comes out with the fact that the whole thing's a giant conspiracy being run by Dracos living on the moon or whatever the hell. Okay. And they're just go read the previous two bills that were passed and read the language in the Senate and House bill that is soon going to be reconciled and passed, and ask yourself, is this indicative of an effort to somehow keep the truth embargo going for 10 more years or 5 more years or 2 more years? So there you have it.
Steve,
and by the way, you want all you have to do is Google 2023 Senate Intelligence Authorization Act, 2023 House Intelligence Authorization Act. Pops right up.
Got it. Quick question from our listeners. Do you think there are countries out there that are sharing the knowledge that they have about this subject quietly, discreetly, secretly, even though each country, hypothetically is a bubble of information, et cetera? Your thoughts on that?
Look, this phenomenon has been worldwide forever. There's evidence for crashes having taken place outside the U.S.
Yeah.
There's one famous case, which I say famous. There's one case that always intrigued me. I didn't run it down, but it might be fun to research for those to do that kind of thing, about a crash in South Africa, where the South African government
90s
said, this isn't human, and we don't want anything to do with this. And so they contacted the United States government and said, would you come take this, please? And the U.S. government, sure, go to U-Haul or go to FedEx, fed that puppy to us. We'll take care of it. I happen to think that in terms of the Western world, the free world, what are you going to call it, democratic world, given our position, our status, and everything else, it wouldn't surprise me if a number of things that have happened in other countries were immediately just turned over to us, because those countries did not have the resources to deal with it, that they would know almost certainly that we would know that something happened one way or another. And therefore, if we're not cooperating, if we're trying to deal with it privately, we're threatening their policy. And we're their defenders in this Cold War. I mean, we're the only thing keeping, nuclear weapons from landing in their lap. And so I believe that there has been that kind of cooperation. I believe that some other countries, certainly based on information they've gotten, are doing some research on their own within their capabilities to see if what they could learn and know. That wouldn't shock me. Now, with respect to China, with respect to North Korea, with respect to Russia, the Soviet Union, and a few other countries, I'm pretty sure that if 5 craft landed in their lap, they wouldn't share with anybody, and they would absolutely contain it. So, and that's not shocking. And there's quite a bit of evidence that the Russians, the Soviets, have got their stuff, and they're dealing with it in their way. Clearly, they haven't confirmed it to their people. Okay. On the other hand, they don't send UFO researchers to prison. There are plenty of them in that country, and a lot has happened there. Paul Stonehill is the leading researcher in the world on that. I've been there. I talked with some of them myself back in 2018. So let's just say that of the various things that Russia is perturbed about, or that even Vladimir Putin cares about, the UAP issue is not a big deal. In other words, they'll deal with it when they want to deal with it. It's not a particular contention between them and us. Now, I can assure you, and I don't want to get back into depth on this, but getting back to what I said earlier, with respect to the United States and Russia, North Korea and China, and the state of the world today, to me, the most significant thread that every major paper and every major university should be diving into, parsing to the max, is the connection between the history of the Cold War and the development of nuclear weapons and the presence of extraterrestrials and their actions in regard to those weapons. I'll wrap that up with this. People ask me why I'm so passionate about this issue. And I have a lot of people come to me and say, well, you're a contactee, right? I mean, that kind of passion, you got to be a contactee, right? You came, saw you when you were a kid, and you never, no, I'm not a contactee. Not even close. Hey, I begged them. All right, no way. So the point is that, and that's not the reason. And I was reading about aliens when I was a kid in sci-fi books. I've seen all the movies. I've seen so many aliens, I can't even count. If the aliens turned up tomorrow, it would be like, that's cool. I know you're here, but there you are walking down the street. That is not where my passion comes from. It never has been. My passion comes from the fact that I've lived my entire life during the Cold War. We've been on the verge of the nuclear war numerous times. It's endgame if we go there. And that's it. All the other problems, global warming, forget about it. It's irrelevant, okay? Inflation, give me a break. Nuclear war is it. And we could easily have one. And I happen to think that the presence of ETs and the disclosure process may be the one thing, if we play our cards right, that could get us out of this mess. And so for me, the work is not, gee, we got to know the ETs are here, but it's how can that, dealing with that issue appropriately, help us to finally get out of this box that we spent 10,000 years building. Right? The human race, all 8 billion, stuck in a box with 20,000 nuclear weapons, a bunch of countries led by people that are probably certifiably insane, and with all kinds of grievances and hatreds that still exist even amongst the populations. How in the hell are we going to get out of that box alive? That's why I am passionate about this.
Question. The process of disclosure, as we're discussing it here, is moving forward. It is inevitable. I don't visualize, a representative, a president or something of the United States coming on major media and simply announcing it all in, rather science fiction ways. Yeah. However, just behind the veil, so to say, of the material that has captured the public imagination that the media has made sure everybody is absolutely overloaded with. Perfect example is the so-called Tic Tac UFO, UAPs, and the footage and how serious it's taken, and keeping a focus on that. Behind that is a lot more exotic stuff that's going on and has gone on for who knows how long. I would include in that crashes and retrievals of advanced technology, abduction phenomena of people being taken, usually following bloodlines, examined, returned, the hybrid phenomena, missing pregnancies, etc. Do you feel that even though it may be very far off in the future, that the road that we are on will lead to public acknowledgement of that, or that it's impossible for the forces that be to even consider letting that material go right now, because its potential for too much upset among the human race is not something they want to play with. Gut feelings on that, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. Wonderful question too. Thank you. Look, in terms of my intellectual connection that eventually evolved to the point where I'm going to give the rest of my life to this issue. I mean, I talked about the fundamental core motivation, the passion, that type of thing, but going way back, I think the earliest memory I have of my eyebrows really raising up and me paying attention in a serious way. I read lots of science fiction as a kid. That's cool. That helps. Nice groundwork. Was the 1961 Look magazine article about the case of Betty and Barney Hill.
It was actually 65, happened in 61.
Okay, all right. Thank you for correcting me. When I read that article, I finished the article and I said, this is amazing and absolutely true.
This is Life magazine.
I didn't Life, Look, whatever. I was like, I just...
Both of them, though, it's hard to explain to people who were not around at the part of the golden age of print journalism. These publications were so much a part of the lifeblood of the American dialogue.
That is right. And so I read it and I said, this is clearly true. And there's an extraterrestrial presence here. And these people were taken. So that's my earliest memory. And so I went about leading my life, which was not particularly interesting or particularly productive. And many, many years go by, and I'm getting drawn back to the issue. And and interestingly, one of the things that I read a number of different books in a number of genre, but in terms of issue, but the ones that really captured my attention, what can I say? Whitley Strieber's Communion. I read Whitley Strieber's Communion and go, wow. That is like so intense. And then I read a couple more in that genre. So I guess you could say the contact issue, which is really the most clearly intriguing and extraordinary in many ways, and mysterious, very compelling. And so either it was by design or it was incidental or ironic, is that as I approached the time in my life when I was going to make a decision, what am I going to do? And this subject was in play, okay, along with some other things. I don't know, become a banjo player. I don't know, become a stand-up comic, whatever the hell, because I needed to do something. I was not going anywhere. Guess what? Right around that time, I read Abduction by John Mack.
Ah, right, of course.
Contact, okay? We all know about that. Okay, but it's more important than that. That book helped make the decision. But it also triggered my next step, the most important step of all. In the back of the book, Abduction, was the address and phone number of the Program for Extraordinary Experience Research. I contacted them. I talked with the manager and convinced them, let me come out and volunteer for you as a development officer or something, or whatever the hell. And they said yes. And so I sold everything off, packed up the car, drove out, and spent 4, maybe 5 months at John Mack's program, peer group there, working in Cambridge, which was all about contact. So that's how I begin. So why am I? What's the point I'm trying to make here? Look, I want disclosure. I talk about politics all the time. I talk about how it needs to be this way and that way, and so forth. And if someone were to drop in on me at any particular time, they would go, why doesn't he talk about contact? Why isn't he in there? Now, I do, obviously, and I have, and I've not been afraid to talk about it. But it is not, while it is a very significant motivating issue to do this, it is not ideal or helpful to the disclosure process. It's helpful in the sense that there are a lot of contactees out there who, because they are contactees, have really gotten to this issue. What we're going to learn is a lot of the more famous people that are in the more prominent realms of high rank and station who have gotten into this and are doing stuff, we're going to learn later on, one of the reasons they're doing it is they're contactees. And while they kept their mouth shut, now they're coming forward. Some have already admitted to it, others will later. I'm not a contactee, but the point is that I'm not ignoring it. It's going to happen, but I know clearly that for this public facing thing to happen, to do what they were supposed to do in 1953, long before Whitley Strieber wrote any books or Bud Hopkins or anything else, before the contact issue was even remotely thought about.
Yeah.
The contact has got to remain out of the picture. In other words, if I'm up on the Hill and I'm Chris Mellon and I'm trying to give some information to certain key committee members to help enlighten them so they might go ahead and call hearings, it's not going to be helpful to be trying to explain to them the contact issue and the contact phenomena.
Yeah.
It is far more difficult compared to the craft are coming down, turning our nuclear missiles off, which is a slam dunk. Trying to discuss contact and hybrids and genetic work. No, it's not going to happen. So you've got to, and when it comes to activism and becomes to doing things like this, you have to do it what works. Okay. Now, do I have any thought that we could end up getting disclosure, which would make a lot of people happy and satisfy a lot of people around the world and take a lot of pressure off the government? That in the aftermath of disclosure, they would take the policy, you got disclosure, we told you about the crashes and everything else. We don't want to talk about this contact stuff. It's probably not happening, okay? No, not a chance in hell. What I want to say to contactees, and I've met and talked to many of them.
Sure.
And you have too. And I'm aware of many, many instances where their being a contactee did not make their life any better. And in fact, in some cases, it made it much, much worse. They paid a heavy price for that. Yes. This happens in a lot of genre, right? It's the nature of life, okay? You play the hand you're dealt, and they were dealt a hand that included the contact card. So all I can say is that one of the loudest voices out there, and there'll be plenty, I assure you. I mean, they're lining up on droves after disclosure is going to be me saying, okay, all right, now let's bring the contactees into this picture. Let's start talking about that. I'm not talking about maybe legislation. I'm not going to pass a legislation and say it's illegal to abduct a human being. If you're an ET, no. Just engage it and give these people the recognition they deserve to validate them. Because I know that just a fundamental validation from authority will take a lot of the pain away. And so be assured.
I couldn't agree more.
But it's going to be post-disclosure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there, and you hear about it. I think, and it's going to pop up here and there. I mean, it's not all or nothing. Perfect example. Recently, Gary Nolan, who is just an incredible man. I love this man. He got the guts and that he has, and the commitment he has, and the work he's done.
Tell folks in 30 seconds, a minute, a little bit about Gary before you go on.
A renowned genetic scientist at Stanford who's been involved in all kinds of work and was and still a member of the To the Stars. It's now called To the Stars, but it started out as To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. He was on the key group, the initial group. He's still there, but he has pretty much also gone out on his own. And he goes on with an interview with Tucker Carlson, and somewhere in there, he sort of alludes to contactees, okay? And you're going to see a little bit here and there. That's okay. All right. Are you going to see it in this legislation? No, not yet. But you will. All right. Because while I think in terms of the overall global situation, the relationship between ET activity since 1947 and the Cold War and the rise of nuclear arms is the most important. After that, in other words, after, let's say that we get rid of the weapons, okay, and we're no longer at risk of nuclear. That would be nice, okay, that's fine, okay, and that's kind of an existential thing. But when you get beyond that, and you get into but let's now get into is there a much deeper relationship between one or more ETs and the human race now, the human race in the past, and the things that they want and are doing, okay, right? That ultimately will be even far more important, because ultimately disclosure leads to open contact. I simply can't imagine it any other way. I can't imagine that we finally disclose the ET presence and they go, okay, job is done here. Let's get the hell out of here, and they head on back. No. That opens the door for the broader picture. How are we going to engage with these entities in an open way as a civilization? And what do we need to know about what they've been engaging with us in the past?
Right.
What are they doing here now? Why are they doing it? Is it good? Is it bad? Could it be done better? Why the genetics? All of these are huge questions, which ultimately will have a much more enduring place in our future than nukes, no nukes. Nuclear war, no nuclear war. Okay, this isn't a moment existential thing. If that happens, all the rest doesn't matter. If we have a nuclear war, nobody's going to give a crap why somebody's being abducted or whether a woman gets a hybrid children. I mean, have a child. That's pretty cool and amazing and worth a lot of study, but it's moot. Everything is moot at that point. Which brings me to one more point. One, don't invest in the idea that ETs will turn off the nuclear weapons, okay? Do invest in the idea of open contact, all right? 3, I can't imagine open contact prior to disclosure, right? If we have a nuclear war, I think it's more likely that we'll have open contact afterwards than before. I mean, this is kind of off the road a little bit, but the point I'm making is right now, put the nuclear thing aside, we're either going to have disclosure or not, and then we're going to have open contact or not. With respect to the nuclear issue and nuclear war, if we have a nuclear war, well, the disclosure process is off the table, and now what's going to happen? Some people think they'll turn them off and say this. They might, okay? I think I'm more inclined that they will not, right? I have my reasons for that, but hey, I'm willing to hold that little. I'm willing to have Pascal's wager. You know, I mean, there's nothing to be harmed, nothing wrong with her. You don't lose anything by thinking that could happen. But if we have a nuclear war, I think there'll be open contact afterwards, and I think it would be along the lines of, okay, you've been at it for 10,000 years. You've been slaughtering each other for 10,000 years. You keep building the weapons. Now you've used the big ones, and you've really ruined everything. Okay. We can help you get back on your feet. Okay. We're not running your world. We weren't going to come down and take over and manage the earth. Who would want that job? I mean, my God, right? And save you from yourselves, though we certainly give you the opportunity. But since you've done it, right? You've gotten that out of your system, we'll help you rebuild. And people say, well, yeah, but billions have died. And they might say, do you know how many billions of sentient beings have died in the last 100 million years in this galaxy? Don't take yourself so damn seriously. You lost 4 or 5 billion people. Okay, fine, maybe 6 billion people. But your planet's still here. You can rebuild and maybe get it right the next time. I mean, that's where I'm thinking. Now, I can't support this in any concrete way. It's a gut sense that I have, right? And I only throw this out because I invite people to consider these possibilities. It might take away some of their angst as they worry about the ETs, they worry about the nuclear war, what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. That bigger picture makes it a little easier to step back and go, okay, let's just keep it together, see what happens. If we can help, we help. And it will play out as it plays out.
Steve, are there any particular individuals in the House or in the Senate whose efforts, we know their names, they put forward legislation, but who you feel we should we should keep our eyes on for leading this legislative initiative, or that it may mutate this coming year and other names will come in, another person on one side of the aisle or the other will distinguish themselves with new legislation? How do you feel about that right now as far as key players?
Well, first and foremost, I invite everybody out there saying, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? There's one simple thing to do. It's easy to identify the 8 or 9 sitting members that have gone on the record on this. Okay. You just do Congress UFO, then Senate UFO, do a Google, whatever. Or you go to my print media archive, which has got articles about all of it. Yeah. I'm up to 13,000 now. You can find them. Send them all a tweet or an email, whatever the hell, and tell them how pleased you are. Praise them. Okay. The Congress, the government's been criticized for decades about its truth embargo. I've done that. People criticize the government all the time. I get it. Does it help? I don't know. I know what does help. Praise. When they do something you like, praise them. And they'll go, that's good. And they'll do more. And so these men and one woman, Gillibrand, praise them. And if somebody else pops up, hit them right away with some tweets or emails praising them. Really appreciate getting in this issue. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hearings and so forth. You can do that. Now, in terms of the current status, the two leading people are Mark Warner and Marco Rubio. Rubio really got the ball rolling. Warner's,
yes, he did.
And he was chairman of the Senate Intel Committee when he did. Now, in the last 2 years, Warner has been chairman, but he took the mantle and he's obviously moving it forward. So they're in complete concordance on this. Gillibrand, who's a very important senator on the Intel Committee, she has also put language in. That's good. And you've got some people in the House, but Warner and Rubio, probably the leaders. That doesn't mean it couldn't change. I expect more members of Congress to jump into this very soon. You're going to see it's going to get up to 10, 12, 15, 20, 30. You're going to have more and more members wanting to get on the records. Okay. And of course, that's a clear sign that we're going somewhere significant. All right. In terms of the politics,
leaders on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah,
coming in on this. It's one of the more positive aspects of the political scene right now. Steve, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to sum up before I go into our closing. It's yours.
Yeah, sure. The recent election is not going to hurt the disclosure process. I think it helps it. The Senate stays in the Democratic hands, which doesn't matter that much, but still, there's now a split government, but that's probably good, right? So the Republicans in the House committee people and the Senate committee people are each going to be able to be involved and get some glory and be in charge. That's good. The issue is the most nonpartisan issue in the world. Anybody who wants to politicize this, go for it. I don't see it. It's just there. It's a safe, major issue that everybody can get into, and people go right on. And believe me, not many issues they can do that. That's another reason why I think it's going to endure. So overall, the setting for new action, which will be hearings and so forth, is there. I know that there's some crazy politics still ahead, but the one thing I want to leave you with to close, if you go back and study the entire midterm campaigns, and there were 490 of them or something, including the governors and everything, go through all of them, find one instance in which a candidate threw some shade on another candidate because they had the gall to even mention UAP or put some legislation out there or say anything positive. Didn't happen. It didn't happen. That's a very important thing.
Steve, what's the website people go to learn more about PRG and see what you're up to date?
ParadigmResearchGroup.org. My most important thing on that site is the print media archive in the resources section. It has 13,000 articles, including over 3,000 since 2017 of high-end media covering all of this. So it's like an historical record. Okay. And it can be word searched, and I have contact information on the site. Get in touch. And again, I'm soon going to be based in Glendale, Hollywood, and there is a big thing coming, which I hope to be able to talk about soon.
On that note, Stephen G. Bassett, thank you again for sharing your knowledge, your insights, your observations with us. Next week's guest is Kathleen Martin, one of the most distinguished names in the world of UFO studies. And if you think you know where Kathleen stands and what she is about right now, buckle your seatbelt for next week for a major shifting of gears. We will spend 2 hours with her on a program I think that will be very meaningful to a lot of people. Peter Robbins here, special guest Stephen Bassett. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other. And happy Thanksgiving, Steve, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone else.
To you too, sir.